Hello, and welcome everyone to Heart of the Matter, a broadcast series where survivors come on and share their story, inspiring us to live the healthiest lives we can. I'm Susan Smith, your host. I want to remind everyone that heart disease is the number one killer of women, taking the lives of 1 in 4. I give you this statistic because my guest today is a heart disease survivor. I'm so honored to have with me today Maura O'Brien, and she's Maura. I forgot to ask you: are you from New York? Are you there now? All
Yes.
right, okay. So she's speaking to us today from New York, and she'll tell us exactly where that is. But I want to introduce you all to her, and then I'll be having some questions, and she can answer and tell her story. So Mara was in the corporate world for 25 years. She was worked as a registered dietitian at Northwell Hospitals before she was recruited to become manager and the director of the Center for Learning and Innovation at Northwell Health's corporate university. She has 25 years there, and her heart story did interrupt that. Um, she's married and she has 2 children, and I'm so pleased to have you. Would you welcome with me hello to Mara? Hi, Mara.
Hi.
So I'm going to ask Mara some questions, and then, but before I do that, I'd like for her to tell her story. Mara, would you tell us your heart story, please?
Sure. 3 years ago, actually, I was getting ready for St. Patrick's Day. I had all my shopping done, and we were having family over. And on the Wednesday, March 15th, I had an appointment, a cardiology appointment. I was going for a checkup. I went for a stress test, and I made it 8 o'clock in the morning so that I could get to work by 12. I had my suit and my computer in the car. And as they were doing the test, more people entered the room and looked a little concerned. And the doctor said they identified something. And they called my cardiologist and they wanted me to go for an angiogram. Well, I got it from the table and I was, kind of annoyed, thinking, what the heck's going on here? And started to get dressed because I figured I could, make an appointment for the angiogram. I get back to my office, I go for my appointment, and, I call, make an appointment. And they said, no, no, we want you to come right now for the angiogram. At this point, I was getting upset, very concerned. I called my husband, who's a nurse. He left work and he came over. They wheeled me across the hall and, prepped me for an angiogram. With the angiogram, they found a couple of blockages. And, my anxiety was growing. Everybody was excellent and they really informed me. And I was really surprised. I have a strong genetic history, but my cholesterol and my lipid profile always seemed good. So I was never really concerned about heart disease. They took me by ambulance over to one of our major hospitals. The doctor came in and said they scheduled me for a coronary artery bypass surgery for Friday morning, March 16th at 7 a.m. So at that point, my sister and brother-in-law came in, my husband came, my daughter, came. Everybody was, concerned. I think that I was in complete shock. As I look back on it, I just could not believe that I had taken such good care of myself. As a registered dietitian, I always ate well. I mostly exercised. No one ever told me I had high cholesterol, and I would, have blood work once a year. So I had open heart surgery on March 16th, 2018. Everything went well. They had to do a triple bypass. I went to cardiac rehab. I went back to work after 3 months. And I was, doing okay, but I felt pretty exhausted. I made it through the end of the year. And then I went to my boss and I said, I cannot keep up with my health I'll say my exercise and, really putting myself first. So I retired at the end of the year. And now I exercise 6 days a week. I walk, miles, walk 3 days for an hour and 3 days for about 45 minutes. And I'm able to, take care of myself now that I'm retired.
Oh, that I can relate with that so much because when I was working, I mean, I did the same thing. If I had an appointment, you leave your stuff in the car because you know that you can get back to work. That shows that, that work ethic that you have, and you were just going to have a regular stress test at the cardiologist. I'm curious, before I ask you the other questions I laid out, what is your family history?
So my mother had bypass surgery when she was 60, but she came from a background where they ate a lot of beef. I was raised with, we probably had beef 3 or 4 times a week. My brother had a heart attack at 59. Both my sisters had high blood pressure, and one had high cholesterol. So that's really why I thought I was good, because my sister who had high cholesterol was on a statin, and my cholesterol never was out of the limits, out of the range. So I thought I beat it. I thought I would never develop cardiac disease.
Well, that to me, that tells me that that underlying family history, those genetics, that's something that we can't control. And I always like to emphasize that so our viewers can really think about their family history. So let me get back to the usual questions I like to ask. What emotions did you have around your diagnosis? I mean, you said you were in shock and disbelief, but afterwards, what did you feel emotionally?
Yeah, so shock probably lasted a really long time. Just disappointment. I think that I almost went through the stages of grief. I wouldn't say that I was super angry, but I felt so disappointed that here I had worked so hard, eaten well, exercised, took care of myself. My body weight is within normal limits. I thought I was doing everything right, and yet, I still developed coronary artery disease. Um, I actually felt like after the surgery, I remember feeling blessed because I didn't have a heart attack. Like I thought, oh, thank God they found this, right? And I'm a fairly positive person and I work very hard I remember afterwards, I did go through kind of a depressed period of time. And it wasn't that I felt desperately depressed, but I was like weepy and I was, kind of sad and crying for a couple of weeks, probably around 4 or 5 weeks after surgery. I started cardiac rehab at 6 weeks, and that really motivated me. I started to feel more positive.
I agree. I think cardiac rehab is such an important step. It not only is there to strengthen your heart and strengthen your body, but it really does something for your mental state. And you've just emphasized that. So it sounded like you were living a pretty healthy life beforehand, and you're right. Thank goodness you didn't have a heart attack. Did you make any lifestyle changes after your procedure?
Yes. So I'm eating more plant-based. The truth is, I didn't have beef even once a week. Usually, we would have chicken and a lot of vegetables. So I'm eating more plant-based. I am exercising more regularly. I get up every morning, and by 11 o'clock, I'm on the treadmill. I'm working on, making sure I get at least 12,000 steps a day. In the nice weather, I was walking and then walking, walking in the morning on the treadmill, walking outside, just more active. So the other thing is my job, I was really lucky to have the job I had. I had so many opportunities, but I had a lot of balls in the air. So I was really probably more stressed than I would admit. So I do like more relaxing and trying to do a little meditation and, not getting, too stressed over things. And I don't have that
Right.
much stress over.
Well, that's the other thing that's so important to know is that stress is a huge factor in, especially for us women and men too, but we take on stress without knowing it. And you said you had a lot of balls in the air, and this just it's the way we like to work, and the more we can do, the better. And that it feels good, and it's kind of a good stress, but it might be too much stress for our hearts.
I think that also we're taking care of so many people. So I still have a wonderful team that I keep in touch with, but you know what I mean? Like everyone has their own issues, and I'm the kind of person that wants to help you do what you need to do and encourage you and develop leadership skills. And, you know, so I'm always thinking about other people, you know, in a good way. And so now I'm thinking more about myself and what I need
Because
to, that I get my
right,
steps and that I'm eating well. Yeah.
it's so important. I'm really glad to hear that. So, what did you learn about yourself after the diagnosis and after your procedure?
Yeah. I learned that I'm pretty strong. I learned that, you know, if I can get through this, I used to say it about pregnancy. If I can get through childbirth, I can get through anything. Now it's really, if I could get through open heart surgery and feel as good as I feel now, I feel like I could, you know, climb mountains. I feel like I could get a lot done. Um, you know, I'm human, and you know, I have to delegate things and I have to take care of myself. I would also say that you know, genetics is more important than I thought that it was. I was thinking that because my mother lived a lifestyle, that the lifestyle that she led caused her heart disease, when in reality, she probably had a strong genetic factor.
Mm,
Actually, her father and her uncles all died before around 50 years old. And
right.
back then, you know, it's not well documented. I'm sure they had heart attacks. I know my grandfather had a heart attack. So, you know, people need to really pay attention to genetics and understand their risk. It's not just high cholesterol.
Right. And it's so important, and I'm so glad that you said that because, I'm like you. I have both my grandfathers died of heart attacks. They just dropped dead in the street. I know that now, but my mother's father died before I was born. So it was just a story she handed down to us. And
Right.
my father's father died when I was a teenager, and I was sad about it at the time, but I never thought about it. It never occurred to me to write it down when I went to the doctor as far as any history. I didn't pay attention to it, and it's important. So my last question, well, I have one other question. So you described your surgery as a coronary artery by it has acronym,
Coronary
CABG,
artery bypass surgery.
right? And is
It's a
that called a cabbage? Like some
cabbage.
people, right? Is everyone's cabbage the same? Do they always do the same?
No. So this was is called the LAD, which is the artery. And my blockage was at a bifurcation, kind of like a fork in the road. So
Um,
because it was at the fork in the road, and then there was another blockage, they had to do a triple bypass, even though it was only two blockages. And depending on what artery it is. So I think the LAD, I think, is like the Widowmaker.
it
I think
is.
they call it.
Yeah.
The fact that they caught it
Blessing.
is the good news.
Yeah, I know. So you are blessed, and you counted your blessings. I know that. So my last question for you today is: what is your advice to women about heart disease?
Know your risk. Ask questions of the doctor until you understand. Don't just ask one question. Ask multiple questions. Come prepared to like kind of map out your, you know, family history. I guess it's really for all diseases, but you know we're talking about cardiac here. So who, what, when kind of thing. The other thing is, definitely put yourself first, exercise. Like, even if you could do a little bit, even if it's, 10 minutes in the middle of the day, or, work yourself up to, 20, 30 minutes. I was telling my daughter recently, like, make the time, right? And at least, is the American Heart Association is saying, I think it's 3 times a week for at least 30 minutes, full steam ahead. So that's the least you should be doing. And then, if you could add a little bit more, do it.
That that's really good advice. Thank you so much for telling us that. And I learned so much from listening to you today, and I'm inspired by your story, and I'm sure that others that watch will also be inspired. So I want to thank you for being my guest today. And if you just
Thank
sit
you.
tight for a second, we can talk after we're done. And for now, I'm going to sign off and say goodbye to our audience. Until next time, I'll see you then. And I'll be signing off now, but I'll talk to you in a minute, Maura.